The bloodiest of all America's wars has been the Civil War. And as we come together to commemorate those who died in an attempt to maintain the unification of this nation, after many years, have finally come to learn that we are stronger together than we are separate. There's a big fuss about immigration, but last week I went to a dance. It was called Latin Fever. And I was invited by the vice president of Coca-Cola. But when I looked around there, it was the business leaders of just about every company in this region. And they all have Hispanic offices. They all reach out to Hispanic markets. They all have Hispanic employees. And even that division, though clustered as it is, and cumbersome as it is right now, eventually we have to admit that we can't get along without each other. During the Olympics, I went to one of our contractors, and I said, "Excuse me, sir, but have you checked the green cards of our workers?" He said, "Mr. Mayor, if you want your Olympics on time, you better get that on the way from here." He said, "We had to charter buses to go to Texas to get these workers just to finish the Olympics on time. Now, if you want an Olympics, don't start worrying about who's building it for you." I said, "Yes, sir, thank you very much." But ultimately, on this planet, Martin Luther King taught us that we're going to have to live together as brothers and sisters, or we'll perish together as fools. And war comes when we forget that. And war comes when communication stops. As a diplomat, as a follower of Martin Luther King, we learned that nobody need be an enemy, that we can work out differences with anybody. And we were able to do that not only in the South of the United States, but throughout the world. For the 4 years that Jimmy Carter was president, he was called weak, but we didn't lose an American soldier, and we didn't kill anybody else. And yet we began to normalize relations with Russia. We brought China back into the United Nations. We made peace with Vietnam. We settled the problems of Southern Africa without any bloodshed or money. And we negotiated an agreement with the people of Panama that simply showed them some respect. But the Panama Canal has never missed a day of operating. In fact, now it's being expanded, and it's going to become even more productive because we have turned from conflict to cooperation. And that means we turn from our differences and to realize what we have in common. And that's where politics gives way to business. And we, as a nation, have done that. Well, football helps in the middle there, too. I watched the struggles of the early 60s when Charlene Hunter and Hal Hamilton Holmes tried to desegregate, successfully desegregated, the University of Georgia. But after Herschel Walker made Georgia #1, my granddaughter went there and got her degree with honors and was very, very proud to be a Georgia Bulldog. And the color of her skin didn't matter nearly as much as the content of her character. And so it's still a little uneasy for me to have somebody shouting in my house, "Bulldog!" But we are moving together as one family in this state, but it would not be possible without those who come together and risk their lives challenged or threatened. But as a diplomat, I have to say that it would be much better if diplomats didn't have to be so proud and pompous and could get down and argue the case like men and maybe keep our boys and girls from having to give their lives. Every time someone has to give their lives for the freedom of America, it's because us hawkers, as diplomats, have failed to do our job. But when we do our job, the world moves forward with much more freedom, with much more prosperity, and with a kind of partnership that enables us to face the true enemies that are faced by all humankind. And those enemies are ignorance, disease, the destruction of our environment, and the failure to be concerned about a life that is safe and secure for our children and our children's children. And that's what I want to close with. That when I was at the United Nations, a group of Native American chiefs from the Mohawk nations came and said, "You don't really represent us, but you make the decisions that will affect our tribes and our nations. And we want to pass on a bit of wisdom from our ancestors, that if you would make decisions for 7 generations yet unborn, we would all be able to live together safely, freely, with respect and admiration for our strengths, and learn from our differences, and celebrate the fact that in spite of it all, we are all God's children." Thank you, and God bless you.